What's going on? It's SFT, and we're talking about the Bears today. And we need to start off with how the season has looked overall, man. This season has been quite a disappointing year for them. Disappointing for some. You know, if you're a Chicago Bears faithful, if you're a lover of Chicago Bears, it's been a really disappointing year for you. If you're not, like me, then somewhat expected it coming into this year. You look at this season, you know, some decent wins, I guess, against the bottom half of the league, bottom teams of the league, the Panthers and the Jaguars, and the Rams. I would say honestly, the Rams are just an average to below average team, and some really tough losses, especially as of late. Some really tough losses and a tough looking schedule. So there's a lot to get into in terms of this team, man. And we got to first of all talk about this defense. This defense is playing excellent. I thought the linebacking core's been playing really good. Their front line's been able to generate pressure. Their secondary's been very good too. I don't really have an issue at all with their defense. I think other than the Cardinals game where they're just leaking runs, they've been playing relatively good. Like under 23 points most games, under 20 points really most games. That's the most you can ask from your defense. Like under 20 points, under 17-ish, that's a really good defensive game. That's an elite defensive game damn there. And they've been doing a really good job. Obviously against quite an easy schedule. They're going to come on a tough schedule coming up. They got the Packers, Vikings, Lions, and 49ers, and Seahawks all coming up. Seahawks probably being their most winnable one. But this has been a really tough season, man. They just recently fired their offensive coordinator, a firing that he should never gotten hired in the first place, but a firing that was destined to happen. This team loves to fire offensive coordinators. This team struggles like having just a functional, consistent offense. But we got to really start off with this offensive line. A lot of people right now on the internet are going at this offensive line, and their offensive line is just so injured. Their offensive line is just so injured. 4 out of 5 guys are out. It's not easy to develop an offensive line identity, consistent playability to run the football, you know? Guys being able to communicate with each other, understanding their gaps. You're calling guys up last second on the practice squad. When you're calling, when guys are not really prepared, they don't have that first team rep like they're supposed to be having. They're just having too much on their plate. I think this offensive line obviously has struggled, but to me, the more depressing thing is that they've really struggled to run the football. Point blank period. This team hasn't been able to run the football even on some of the worst running football teams. Like you look at the Colts, like they struggle to run the football against the Colts. Colts give up runs for days. They struggle to run the football against a lot of football teams, man. They struggle to run the football against the Patriots, man. I can understand the Cardinals not running the football, but Commanders, you can run the football against the Commanders. The Jaguars, I thought they played really good, but there's a lot of issues with this team, and we got to start with this coaching. This coaching, to me, has been a major issue. I do not know why they allowed Matt Eberflus to come into this season being the head coach. It's a big issue that happens in Chicago. They're not, and that's a big issue with the Chicago Bears. When they need to cut off ties with coaches, when they need to cut off ties at the right time, they don't do it. When they need to cut off ties with players at the right time, they don't do it. They're always a step late. I heard somebody say it's not a part of the culture to fire a coach mid-season. Well, it's not a part of the culture to take a step forward. They're just not that football team, and it shows on and off the football field. They've been having poor offensive coordinator play for a long period of time. Their last offensive coordinator just got fired. Got fired a couple of weeks ago maybe from the Raiders. Think about that. Got fired right away from the Raiders. Not even halfway through the season. It's absolutely ridiculous, and they're showing right now. Can't run the football. Offensive line looks terrible. Haven't developed them at all. Receivers, they look like they're dejected from the game, man. They're not getting any touches. They're not getting quality yards. They're not having big-time games, especially when we're talking about guys like DJ Moore, who were used to having big games last year, and now this year, you're not having any big games. You're not the number one guy. It's not even the fact that you're not the number one guy, but you're just not getting the touches you're used to getting, and that's a big problem, especially when it comes to building camaraderie between the quarterback and receiver position. This defense has been playing lights out. I think defensive coaching has been pretty damn solid too, but this offense is just anemic, man. This offense stinks, like even against teams that they should have done work against, like the Patriots, the Cardinals, man, the Commanders. Like, they're a decent defense, Commanders, but this week the Steelers look solid against them, man. You look at a team like the Colts. These teams struggled offensively against the Colts. There's so many like questionable games about this football team. The Texans, obviously Texans were a lot healthier back then, but even then, like, to put up 13 points on Sunday Night Football, really underwhelming. And I want to get to culture, because this, obviously the organization has great cultural issues, but one thing I'm not a fan of, especially when I talk about this Chicago Bears football team, or I see it not being talked about enough, is the timeline of this defense of certain position groups is not the same as the timeline of other positional groups. And what I mean by that is this defense is so much more developed than this offense. And it's not just that. This wide receiver core, we talk about guys like DJ Moore, who's ready to go now, who wants stats now, who's ready to play at a high level now. You paid him big money off this offseason to play at a high level. We talk about guys like Keenan Allen, who is brought in to be a number 2, elite number 2. You talk about a guy like Rome Odunze, you pick number 9. He's brought in to help this wide receiver core. You're giving him plenty of weapons, you know? You're giving him an opportunity to be that number 2 guy once Keenan Allen leaves, right? Before that, you look at a guy like Cole Kmet, ready to go now, right? So you have an offense, parts of your offense in that receiving core that's ready to go now. This offensive line isn't ready to go. This offensive line coach, I think he's still here, man. One of the worst offensive. Last year they had offensive line issues. The year before they had offensive line issues. You know, this offensive line has not been developed. And somebody can say, "Oh, this is." They can blame it on it, and some people can blame it on injuries. And I can understand that 4 out of 5 guys are injured, but the inability to develop guys, to me, has been shocking. Guys are coming into the game look poor, and your quarterback isn't helping you at all. This guy, Caleb Williams, keeps holding onto the football 3-4 seconds. The guy's holding onto the football. He's going through all his reads. He needs to throw the ball out of bounds. He's not helping his team at all. Especially, it really irks me when I see this guy holding onto the football in places where you're 2nd and 5, and he just holds onto the football. You get to 3rd and 12. It's like, what are we doing? Like, you're supposed to help this offensive line out by throwing the ball out of bounds. You know, it's not like you're getting pressured at a high level or they're blitzing the life out of you. No, you need to get this football out of your hands, point blank period, and you're not doing that, man. And that becomes a big issue when you're consistently going back. You're losing 3rd and 12, you're losing 7-8 yards, right? And you're getting out of field goal range, as you saw against the Patriots. I really want to get back to talking about like cultural dysfunction in terms of this team's ready to go now. This fan base is ready to go now. They want to win now. A lot of things are win now mode. This offensive line isn't ready, the most important part of the offense, and this quarterback isn't ready to win now. And guess what? It kills the vibe in a locker room. It kills the energy in a fan base and in a locker room. There is something seriously wrong with this football team. And this is what happens when you do things the wrong way. A guy like him should have been sitting behind Justin Fields for a year as you would be ready to go all in. You finished the last year really good. This is the year. You go all in. You obviously keep Justin Fields on. You move on from him after the year is done, right? And you work with Caleb Williams. But guess what? You gave the guy the keys to the team right when he got drafted. That's a big issue. You should have had him sit behind. You've been having for years dysfunction at the quarterback position, right? In terms of, not in terms of talent-wise, but really in terms of just running the offense. You haven't had good offensive coordinators. Everything looks difficult. Why not keep a guy who has been through it all? Like Justin Fields has been through it all. Let him stay there. Develop Caleb Williams and bring in Caleb Williams maybe in his 2nd, even in his 3rd year. You can keep Justin Fields an extra year too. Obviously, they might complain and say, oh, we want to use all 4 years. And that's just such a delusional mindset we have in this new NFL. Oh, we have to maximize the contracts. No, your quarterback needs to develop. You need to maximize their talents, man. It's not about maximizing the contract. And to get to the final point about quarterback development, like, that's to me the scariest part about this coaching staff. 2 quarterbacks in Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields. You drafted high, right? You failed them both. Point blank period. I don't care what anybody says. You failed them both. You failed to develop them. You gave them poor offensive coordinators, poor offensive coaches. And that's the worst thing about this offense. They can't pick a struggle because they struggle at everything. They can't throw the football. They can't run the football. They can't win at the line of scrimmage. They struggle at the line of scrimmage in terms of physically. How do you expect a quarterback to develop in a team where you're so pass heavy, you're not able to run the ball at will? And I always feel like there's so much being put on his plate. You look at a guy like Bo Nix, even Jaden Daniels, their game plans are so simple. Like, they're so simple. Check the ball, make your read, throw the ball out of bounds. Obviously, one thing I do compliment them with is that they throw the ball out of bounds. They're not like Caleb Williams, who holds onto the ball too much. I think that's a huge maturity issue he has. He needs to throw the football out. That's one of the big issues I have in his game, maturity. Outside of that, the guy needs to develop. People keep shitting on the guy saying, oh, I don't think he's the right one. I don't think he's going to be the one of the future. I think he's a bust. It's so delusional. This isn't basketball, guys. Like, this is football. Guys need to go out there, execute, make their reads. If the play works, it doesn't matter. If the play doesn't work, it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, as a quarterback, you need to be making your reads and you need to be executing the plays. And you need to trust that your offensive coaches give you the right play calls, point blank period. You run what the hell they give to you. You need to make your reads and don't put your team in a position to lose. More teams find ways to lose football games than they find ways to win football games. And that to me is the most alarming part I would definitely say about Caleb Williams' game right now. Too many sacks he's taking in poor positions. He's not making the right reads. I want to say he's regressing because he hasn't progressed at all. Obviously, you just played against easy competition, but you have to really look at this team and say, we might have to go on a fire sale at the end of this year. We're having too many guys on our defense that are fully developed. This is a defense that's ready to push deep in the playoffs. This is a defense, in my opinion, that can rival, the Lions, even the Vikings. This is a quality defense. They sit up there in the NFC North. They can rival really good football teams, right? They have a quality defense, man. And for you to be wasting that potential and just wait for your offense to slowly develop, it creates friction in that locker room, and it's something that you absolutely cannot do. This fan base, they can respect a rebuild, but one thing they can't respect is just wasting time, wasting talent, and watching their quarterback struggle, man. If you have to pull him out the game, pull him out. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's no such thing as, oh man, you're shooting his confidence. No. I saw a guy like Bryce Young, I personally thought highly of him in college, got pulled out this year. Comes back right now, he looks solid. Does he look great? No. Is the playbook opening up for him? No. Are they barely throwing the ball deep? Yes. Are the receivers kind of struggling in man coverage? Yeah. But guess what? He looks a lot better after that benching. He looks like he understands the game a lot better. Caleb Williams needs time to understand the pro game. And when you're thrown into, I would really say, man, you're thrown into the deep end in the NFL. In a tough conference, you're going to see they're going to have some really tough football games coming up. The Packers, the Vikings, the 49ers, the Lions twice, man. Twice. They're going to have to see them twice. The season's not going up from here. This is what happens when you poorly develop a football team. When you should have kept your quarterback from last year who was far more developed and flexible in an offense that is simply not consistent. Like Justin Fields is born and bred in the dysfunction that is the Chicago offense. He can figure it out at least. But you bring in a young guy, a new guy who's in an offense. By the way, he's been with the same offensive coach for damn near 3-4 years straight in Lincoln Riley. This is the first time he's going to be getting different play calls from different individuals, right? They're going to be putting more on his playbook. And don't forget, man, they're becoming such a pass-heavy team because of the money they spent on their receivers. Don't forget that. Like, people keep getting messed up. Oh man, we just need to run the football. Everything looks. The reason why they're really putting a lot on his plate, they spend a lot of money on this passing core. The receiving core, I mean. And you look at a team like, Denver, who has spent so much less. And you look at a team like the damn Commanders, who've literally traded one of their first round pick wide receivers, John Dawson, to the Eagles, right? And they really want to establish a run game. These teams are looking and saying, we could care less about weapons. We need to have a functional offense with receivers that can do just enough. You look at a team like the Panthers out compare right now. They have an excellent running game, an offensive line that's coming together, and underwhelming receiving core to say the least. But you don't need an elite receiving core in that, at least right now. Early on for a rookie, you do not need an elite receiving core. You need an elite run game that you can depend on, that you can make the checkdowns, so you can make your reads, and you can run the system that the offensive coordinator gives you. Just run the damn system. Be a system quarterback, make plays here or there, but outside of that, run the system. This is the NFL. This is not the NBA. Guys are not just all of a sudden going to free ball. No. This ain't college, man. This is the NFL. You're playing against the best players that came out of college. The best players on their team. Like, you're playing against some of the best coordinators ever. Guys leave college to go to the NFL so they can play against better competition. Let's keep it real. So the naivety of this organization, the naivety of this offensive system to believe, oh man, we could put in our rookie quarterback and he could absolutely cook the season. Absolutely delusional. I don't remember the last time I've seen a rookie really go crazy. Maybe there's anomalies. Guys are like CJ Stroud, and you look at him this year, offensive line not performing at a high level, man. Injured receivers, and now you look at him and his play has drastically dropped. Like, this is not basketball, man. This really isn't basketball. He has a decent running game. Obviously, offensive line hasn't been playing that great. Receivers, you got guys like John Mechie, Tank Dell really haven't taken that big step up. But other than that, offense has really been struggling as of late. People have to understand, man, when it comes to especially young quarterbacks, they need a solid run game. They need guys to really step up on their offense. And when you have a offensive line that's not stepping up, like you can see in Houston, like you can see in certain parts of Carolina, like you can see in, I'll say last year with Sam Howell, a struggling offensive line. Those issues, you start to really look at a quarterback and say, he's not good enough. You start to look at a quarterback, they go up a little bit and they drop down heavy. I remember watching Sam Howell last year, and he really looked similar to Caleb Williams this year. Sam Howell showed really highlights, man, against the Eagles. He looked really good against certain teams. And then all of a sudden, season goes longer and longer, competition gets a little bit more difficult and more difficult, and guess what? He's struggling, man. The guy's taking sack after sack, he's throwing in bad interceptions. You do not want your rookie quarterback to lose development. Keep the game plan simple and slowly develop them. The slow way is always the best way when it comes to quarterbacks. There is this extreme delusion that, oh man, we gotta maximize the rookie quarterback contract. It's absolute bullshit. We gotta stop that bullshit, man. That's not how it works. You know, throw that garbage out. We gotta maximize the rookie contract. Like, what are we talking about, man? You gotta maximize your team, man. You gotta maximize your offensive line, man. The receiving core, the defense, the coaching staff, most importantly. You have to maximize everything as you develop your quarterback, man. We have to really change our mindset when it comes to the development of quarterbacks. Outside of that, I appreciate you watching this video. Show some love, subscribe please, and peace.